Welcome back to Introduction to Mixing, a free class for composers and producers who want to mix their own music. Today, we will be learning step number 5 of our simple mixing workflow, and that is how to apply EQ across your mix. Now, equalization, or EQ, is a tool for reducing, removing, or boosting various frequencies in your mix to create a more tonally balanced and clear sound. Now, unfortunately, this is also one of those tools that can absolutely ruin your sound if you don't know how to use it properly. So the golden rule moving forward is going to be apply reactively, not proactively. In other words, don't just Google a list of how do I EQ each instrument and just start adjusting frequencies willy-nilly just because you feel like you're supposed to. Instead, it's going to be important to learn what to listen for and to only apply EQ when you have a specific reason to. In fact, you know what? I'm going to take a quick moment to address the hierarchy of everything we've learned so far. If you want a solid mix, prioritize your balance first, and then your panning should be second. Those two steps, which we've already covered, will, by a massive degree, constitute the biggest and most productive impact you can have on your mix. In a relatively distant third place will be your reverb. You can almost think of this like a cake. Your balance and your panning are responsible for the soft sponge of the confection. Reverb is like the frosting. 100%, it can level up the whole experience. But if your cake is just straight up nastiness, then no amount of frosting is going to magically make a difference. It's the same with your mix. Prioritize the balance and the panning, then address reverb. These three alone should be most of the work. In comparison, EQ is a relatively low priority. That's not to say it's unimportant, just that compared to balance, panning, and reverb, it shouldn't be given as high of a priority. Understood? All right, good. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. The most basic and useful application for equalization is to remove something called room tone. When audio is recorded, some of the sounds from the room often get picked up. Soft hums from the machinery, computers, HVAC systems, ceiling fans, buzzing lights, etc. These soft sounds generally fill up the background of your recording as an indistinct low rumble. And to be clear, this is not a problem. In fact, recordings without any room tone at all tend to sound flat. They just feel a little off. Probably because we're used to constantly having these types of sounds in our own lived experiences day to day. They're just background noise that we expect to hear. And when they're missing, it feels uncanny, which consequently is one of the reasons why there are many sound libraries dedicated just to different types of room tone to help give super sterile recordings a bit more life. Now, the problem then isn't about the presence of room tone. It's about too much room tone. You see, if I use a cello library with a little bit of room tone, that's fine. But if I use 36 different tracks, all with the same room tone, well, now I have 36 rooms worth of mud being added to my mix. And this is what makes things sound cluttered and muddy. In other words, a little bit of room tone is helpful, but too much becomes an issue. And this is where EQ comes into the picture. We can use a simple high-pass filter to remove some of the room tone so it doesn't all stack up into too much. Step 1 is to select the track you want to work with and pull up your DAW's frequency analyzer. Here I'm pulling up my vibraphone track. Solo the track and let it play for a little bit. What you're looking for is this sort of bump in the lower frequencies right here where the instrument's not actually playing. This is room tone. Now, not all tracks are going to have a ton of room tone, but when you find one that does, you'll want to insert some sort of EQ plugin. Most DAWs will have a whole selection of free options you can choose from. Personally, I like Frequency by Cubase because it just has this nice little frequency analyzer that I can work with. It's handy and convenient. Step number 2 is to set up your high-pass filter. And this is going to involve choosing your cutoff frequency and a rate of attenuation. A cutoff frequency is a specific frequency or pitch where your filter will be applied. In a high-pass filter, all frequencies above the cutoff are allowed to pass through unchanged, while all frequencies below the cutoff get filtered and reduced. Now, there are a ton of different approaches you can use to find a good cutoff frequency. You can try picking a fixed point like 65 hertz, which is about low C, or you could take a look at where the highest frequencies in your room tone fall, which here looks about 200 hertz. So we would pick a cutoff frequency just above that point. Or honestly, you can use any other strategy that you can think of. You are more than allowed to experiment and find a strategy that you like. The only requirement is that your cutoff frequency should be lower than the lowest note in your instrument's range. If the cutoff overlaps with your instrument, then you are going to end up shaving important frequencies off of your recording, which will change how your instrument sounds. Do this too many times, and you can ruin your mix. For example, getting rid of the room tone on my vibraphone library. I know that the lowest note a vibraphone can traditionally play is the F below middle C, which is F3 in scientific pitch notation or F2 in MIDI notation. This note has a frequency of about 175 hertz. That means that my cutoff needs to be below this point. Usually, I give myself about an octave. Since octaves are multiples of 2, the octave below 175 is divided by 2. It gets about like 87.5 hertz. And that's a nice, safe bet. But you are welcome to experiment and see how it impacts your sound. In this case, since my vibraphone is playing mostly in the upper register, I cut things a little close with 170 hertz, still below that maximum of 175. Once you find your cutoff frequency, the next step is to set your rate of attenuation. The rate of attenuation refers to how strong your high-pass filter is going to be. Filters are usually described using something called poles. A single pole refers to a rate of attenuation of minus 6 decibels per octave. In this plugin, it is very handily visualized as a ramp. This filter is 1 pole strong. That means an octave below my cutoff frequency, all the frequencies are being reduced by 6 decibels. If I go another octave lower, it's another 6 decibels. And another 6 the octave lower, etc., etc. Changing the strength of my filter changes the amount of room tone being removed. Now, you usually do not want a super strong filter because the stronger your rate of attenuation, the more likely it becomes that your filter will start to distort the sound by adding frequencies called artifacts, just as a byproduct of how filters work. Plus, like we talked about earlier, removing too much room tone can result in a subtly uncanny quality to your mix. So as a general rule of thumb, I usually recommend just sticking to 1 or 2 poles per filter and prioritizing your upper register instruments more than the lower register instruments. But as usual, trust your ears, play around with the settings on your own filter until you have a sound that you like. Once you've figured out your first track, step 3 is to repeat this same exact process for each of your remaining tracks, remembering that you're only applying EQ when necessary. So if a track doesn't have a lot of room tone, leave it alone. Remember, reactive, not proactive. Now, obviously, there are additional strategies for applying EQ, but removing room tone is one of the simplest and most powerful. And it's the only one that I'm going to officially recommend for a simple, basic mixing approach like this. Because again, getting carried away with EQ will ruin your mix and make it sound artificial, lopsided, or even uncanny. With EQ, less is more. So be miserly when applying this. However, once you've applied EQ to the entire mix, you are left with a very subtly, more tonally balanced sound with a clearer low end. And with that, we have reached the end of another video, my friends. In the next lesson, we will discuss the final step in mixing, compression, before finalizing everything with a quick summary and a review of the workflow we've learned. But until then, I'd like to thank my generous patrons, channel members, and the donors who make videos like this one possible. I appreciate each of you more than you realize. So until next time, keep studying, keep working hard, and keep writing new music, my friends. I will see you in the next video.